Hello, and welcome to the Moronomics podcast.
I'm Heather Long, the Economist.
And I'm Joe. On this show, a brilliant brilliant accomplished. Okay, starting off great, huh? On this show, a brilliant, accomplished economist. Well, that's going to have to change because I'm going to trip over that every time. Explains concepts from economics to her high school classmate, me, who probably doesn't understand those concepts. Usually on these podcasts, people will start out saying, "How are you?" and then "How are you?" And I think we can assume Heather and I are both on our computers. We're both on video. You can hear us. You can see us. We're okay. We don't need to do "How are you?" Instead, I'm going to do every time I'm going to do one of these lightning round questions that I've come up with. At some point, maybe I'll put together a lot of these and we'll do them in an actual lightning round. But for the first one, Heather, what's the best denomination of the American dollar and why?
Wow, well, this is a particularly spicy question since we're getting rid of the penny right now, and
That I can't believe that's actually happening.
I
That's
know.
wild.
So, I went through my first McDonald's recently where they actually have the sign up that, explains to
Oh,
you how they are doing rounding now that the
oh
penny is in
wow.
short supply. Um, ooh, I
I don't
think
know
the
why
way
they're worried, but sorry.
I don't know. I think the one
It's not a penny menu, it's a dollar menu, is all I'm saying. But okay, please go ahead.
maybe I'm going the wrong way on denominations, but I think for me the fascinating one, and now that I have a toddler, I see it even more. It's probably the nickel because even though it's only worth 5 cents, it's actually quite hefty in your
Oh,
hand.
okay.
It's bigger than the dime, and it sort of has its own. It like punches above its weight. So I
Yeah.
think there's a fascinating something
It's sort
around.
of a paradox.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. That's actually the incorrect answer. The correct answer is it's the $50 bill. It's a strong bill without being so flashy as a $100 bill, but very nice try. Okay. Sorry.
We know
Uh,
who's the rich rolling in the money here on this.
right. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So given this is our first show, we don't really have any show news other than it's new that we have a show. Uh, for this first one, I thought maybe we could introduce ourselves, give a little bit about our background, and at Heather's suggestion, a sort of icebreaker question of describing the worst financial decision that we have ever made. So Heather, please,
We're just
you
laying
kick it
it
off.
bare right at the top.
Well, it's important to show vulnerability. It builds trust. I think it's a healthy thing to yes, to show vulnerability. Please.
Well, Joe and I have known each other since the 1990s at a high school in central
Oh yeah.
Pennsylvania, which was at the time described as a bucolic area, one of those great SAT words of old. But
I always feel like bucolic sounds worse than it's a nice thing, but
yes,
it always sounds
should
kind of
be
like
nice. It should be nice, but people who use it tend to not,
oh
see
that's
it
unfortunate.
as more of a backhanded thing. But anyway,
Hmm.
um, yeah, and, we actually had an economics class in high school, a
Well,
microeconomics class.
you had the economics class. I dropped out of that class before it started to
And
take
here we
music
are,
theory. To
25
take
years
music
later,
theory.
and
Yeah,
that's why
exactly.
Joe composed the intro to the show, among
And
other
that's why Heather is an economist.
and that's why I'm the economist who likes nickels. But,
Yes.
I guess, okay, so the short intro, the fancy stuff is I'm currently chief economist at Navy Federal Credit Union, and we have 15 million members. I love credit unions, much better than banks, and about 200 billion in assets now. So if we were a bank, which thank
Wow.
God we're not, we would probably be one of the 14th or 15th largest in the United States. So we're big, but we're not the giant guys. And the reason we exist and the reason I love my job is we are focused on the middle class. We are
Oh.
really focused on folks who are not making $200,000 and above, which is where most other banks are trying to focus. And you can see that just by looking at the credit card reward points and who's offering
Hmm.
what. But yeah, how did I get here? Real briefly, from our high school in central Pennsylvania. I majored in economics and English in college. I have a master's in financial economics from Oxford University, where, believe it or not, I was a Rhodes Scholar, which still is hard to believe for some of my family
What?
members.
How did I
And
not know this about you?
I
You
know
were Wow.
I don't put it on a sign, I need to
Yeah.
put
Well,
it up.
they don't give you like a special hat for that, do they, or anything?
So, yeah, and then I actually had my first job in London, was very fortunate to work for a few years, at an investment
Wow.
firm in London, and so that really gave me a very different perspective on the global economy and how
Yeah, I'll
everything
bet.
really works, and, have some crazy stories. I briefly managed money for Prince Charles's trust, which was a wild experience. I was the only
Wow.
person in the room without a title at their board meetings, and everybody else was like Lord and
Wow.
Lady so and so and all this stuff that's really hard for a girl from the middle of nowhere, PA, to remember. You have to remember all these titles. Anyway, and yeah, then I made this like giant career leap to move back to our hometown where I swore I would never go again. And be careful what you say in life. And I became a journalist for a while and worked at our hometown paper, and then at CNN in New York, and then down at the Washington Post and
Hmm.
DC for years as the lead economics reporter and columnist. And then made went back into the finance world to be chief economist at Navy Federal. So that's my
Wow.
crazy story. I'll let you say a little bit about yours, and then we can lay bare our financial not so greatness.
Oh, okay. Well, I've had a few different careers. At the moment, I'm I work in local government. I'm in human resources in local government. I specialize in compensation, classification, and compensation. So I suppose I have sort of a tangential connection to economics, but there are a lot of interesting things about compensation, like deferred compensation plans and things like. I have nothing to do with any of those because we are
I hope you
because
take
we're
advantage of them. But yeah.
I so the other thing you'll find is that as we get to know each other in this context, I am not economically, financially savvy at all. But uh, mostly what I deal with are things related to pay schedules. We have 6 public sector unions at the government where I work. But I get there's no reason to keep it secret in Baltimore County government, just north of Baltimore City. If you ever want to go, an interesting deep dive is looking at the history of Baltimore City versus Baltimore County, which are I go like this because Baltimore County kind of surrounds the city. Um, but they were originally one jurisdiction that separated, I believe,
Hmm,
just after the Civil War, maybe. Anyway, so Baltimore is an independent city. So unlike a lot of cities that have a more broad and diverse, both
yeah.
geographically and all these things, Baltimore City is its own kind of thing. And I'm in the county that sort of surrounds Baltimore City. That's the government that I work. Anyway, we have all these public sector unions. So a lot of what I do has to do with our different pay schedules and
Hmm,
compensation rules. The rules have rules. The rules have
yes.
exceptions except when they don't, and that sort of thing. Anyway, in terms of my background, when I graduated high school, so I think Heather and I did not see each other in person from about 2000 until this past summer.
Maybe. I
I
think you
think
might
it
be
was
right.
25
I
years.
don't think you
I'm
you
revealing our age. Oh no.
I know.
Um, but so I went to college. Was going to be a music major and switched out of that pretty quickly. Ended up being a psych major, and ended up. So I finished school, went to spend some time in graduate school, and I was in a PhD program, but I didn't finish the PhD for a variety of reasons. I like to say it's because of love, because while I was in graduate school, I met my wife, and then she was going to move to Boston, and I said I want to be with her a lot more than I want to be a PhD. And so anyway, uh, and then after bumping around between this and that for a little while, I did some adjunct teaching. Ended up working at Hopkins, Johns Hopkins University, which you might know is relatively near us here in Baltimore. Um, and then I got laid off in 2019. Uh,
Oh,
yeah. In the end, it was a good thing to happen in terms of my broader life outcomes. It was very traumatic for me at the time, though. So I kind of fell off the map for a while. I was applying to jobs in a very lackadaisical way, and so I wasn't getting a job. Wasn't getting a job. Then the pandemic hit, and I started volunteering at a food pantry down in Baltimore City. Food pantry that also did a few other financial assistance, eviction prevention, a career center. And in
wow.
working in their career center, I realized, oh, I can do more with my life. So I was volunteering, then I started working there. Then I realized, oh, there are jobs out there in government that are probably a lot more secure than my job was, at Hopkins. So I started applying to government jobs, and I got into workforce development. What I did at Hopkins was I worked at an organization that does gifted education. So it's sort of an academic center within Hopkins. But anyway, I got in with local government with Baltimore County in workforce development, which is supposed to be about helping people get back to work after they have an event like being laid off. Sorry, I keep adjusting my earphone here. Anyway, and then after a few months of that, I said, I'm tired of driving on the Beltway every day. I bet I can find something a lot closer to my house. And I found this job in HR, and I thought, I've always wanted to do HR. So at about 41, 42 years old, something like that, I made a total career switch and started in HR. So anyway, that's me.
Yeah, we both worn so many different hats, but it really strikes me that right now, here we are at this phase of life, whatever you want to
Right.
call it. The middle is such a weird word, but it strikes me that we've both chosen a bit of security, industries and
Yeah.
sectors that do provide a little bit more security as a generation that has lived through
Hmm.
9/11, that's lived through the great financial crisis and great recession, that's lived through the pandemic and that
Yep.
recession and crisis, the inflation spike. I think you can
Hmm.
really see a lot of people in our millennial generation and Gen Z coming up behind us who are,
Risk
they're
averse.
yeah, that's a good way to say it. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah.
How
You
many more
start to
shots
seek out.
have?
I'm
Yep,
sorry. Oh, I
yeah.
was just going to say, yeah, you start to seek out these things that are more permanent, and perhaps not going to make you the big money, but will be secure. So yeah, yeah, it's interesting. I don't know. And I also, it's as you say, we had worn these different hats, had these different pursuits, and I thought you were saying, here we are now doing a podcast together. It's maybe the most millennial thing ever, but yeah. So Heather, what was the worst financial decision that you have made?
Oh man, there's so many, but the one that I probably should share is I made the cardinal sin of paying too much for housing and rent. And when I did it,
Oh,
I got that job at CNN. I moved from our hometown to New York City. Here I am, finally living my Sex in the City life or whatever, fantasy friends you want to live. And those shows are totally unrealistic about housing. And so I did. I moved to New York City and I wanted the one-bedroom apartment, the sign that you made it. Yeah, and that
hmm.
was so stupid. I did have a pretty nice view, but yeah, I was paying. I mean, I'm almost embarrassed to say this, but $2,500 a month. Now it'd probably be
Wow.
$3,500 a month, but it was just
It would
and
be more, I think.
yeah, that's what
But
I mean.
yes.
I don't even want to look it up. I don't want to know.
Yeah, right.
But I had just turned 30, feeling like I
Oh,
need to prove that you made it. And I got that really freaking expensive apartment. It was way over, the threshold they usually say is never spend more than 30% of your take home pay on housing.
hmm.
And I stupidly broke that threshold. And let me tell
Ooh.
you, there's no amount of ramen noodles that you can eat that could correct for having the massive payment going to housing. Because I tried. I ate a lot of
Yeah.
weird stuff for a year or two, and the more funniest part is you live in there in New York and nobody comes to your apartment, right? I mean, there's so
Right.
many things to do. You're not like, hey, come hang out in my tiny little shoebox, but it has a one bedroom.
Yeah.
Come see my one bedroom. I mean, maybe if you're gonna have a one night stand or whatever, but it's not like maybe some people it is every night. But you get my point.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Yeah, for
It
sure.
was,
Yeah.
and there, yeah. So ever since, in some ways, it was good because ever since then, when I actually finally was able to buy a house, and I like went the other way. I was so
Yeah, right.
nervous. I probably spent way less than I should have because I wanted that manageable monthly payment.
I don't know. So I've seen this. I won't name names, but a friend of ours from high school who has ended up being extremely successful. And his first house was like it was. I mean, it was a nice little house, but it was a row home. And at some point we were hanging out, and he was like, "I'll pick up dinner." And I said, "No, no." I mean, he's like, "I just paid off my house. Don't worry about it," because he bought at a certain income, and then his income grew a fair amount, and I was like, so now he's got the house, or well, he's since moved to another house, but still, yeah. I mean, and or a friend of mine, another friend of mine from college who, yeah, he and his wife bought a place, I don't know, like like 12 years ago, something like that. And when they were both kind of eking by, and they've had huge growths in their income, and now their monthly on that mortgage, I think, is like $600, you know?
Oh, man.
And so it's
Wow.
just like, just building equity, paying off extra on it all the time, that kind of thing. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's a sweet deal, but that's what's so hard with rent. I actually lived, I'll admit, for 1 year in my parents' basement kind of thing when
Oh,
I first
wow.
moved back to here, and it was funny, at those days, it was the early days of doing this, like, right after the Great Recession, and I would
Hmm.
whisper, people would be like, "Where are you living again?" And I'd sort of say, "Oh, the general area. What neighborhood?"
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
And finally somebody said to me, "You're so smart." Which I
Yeah.
think is actually kind of the reaction now, like, obviously, you don't wanna live with your parents forever. I
Well,
finally moved
yeah.
out when I had a fight with my dad over how to properly clean a bread knife, but I was like, "It's time to go. It's time to go. This is not gonna work."
That's marvelous.
But yes, housing, I mean, I could tell you a lot of other bad things I did, but I just feel like
Mm,
it's such a big expense for most people until you're making those big monies like the
right. Yeah.
shared, and particularly when you're renting, there is still a sense of throwing that money away. So and
Yes.
I was even giving it to some landlord who lived in Switzerland.
Mhm.
That's how that's how dumb that was.
I feel like my Swiss landlord is the setup for like a but bump kind of joke, It's like, so I had a Swiss landlord.
I know,
It
who
was,
knows if he
it was
actually was
a real
Swiss.
holy roller, like Swiss cheese. I don't. There's a joke there somewhere.
Yeah,
Um,
I
yeah.
was the joke, so there you go. What about you, Joe? Please.
Oh, it's so financial decision. Specifically financially speaking, my worst decision was graduate school.
Oh,
uh,
oh, yeah.
Going to graduate school. And it was a PhD program. So when I first graduated college, I actually I applied to 7 or 8, something like that, PhD programs in clinical psychology. I got about 7 or 8 very nice rejection letters, and so I moved in with my parents after college for a year, and then I applied to graduate school in a different area of psychology, and that's what I ended up actually going to my PhD program for. But for that year, and I will say it's an underrated experience to get to know your parents as an adult as opposed to the kid in the house.
I agree.
Like, I think I definitely grew a lot closer with I mean, we were already a close family, always were, but, yeah, living together with me as an adult, we got to know each other, yeah, just in a more enriched capacity and that kind of thing. So, but in terms of, yeah, my worst decision was absolutely graduate school. In terms of financial decisions. In terms of life decisions and like my the friends I made, the skills I learned to a certain extent. Like I used to do programming in MATLAB, which is
Yes. Yes.
technical computing language. Yeah, it's or scientific computing or whatever they call it. So I used to do programming in that, and I never did any computer programming before that. You know, and it's not that I still use MATLAB. Local government does not have MATLAB money. A license for that is ridiculously expensive. But the skills I learned thinking programmatically, algorithmic kinds of thinking through equations and stuff like that, I realized that there are ways to get even Excel to do a lot of work for you. So anyway, so there are skills I learned. And of course, while I was in graduate school, I also met my wife, and an extraordinarily patient woman and a real class act compared to her husband. So, so yeah, but I did, and I made, okay, within my graduate school decision was another terrible decision, which I had the ultimate PhD kind of deal in that I didn't have to take out loans. I had tuition reimbursement and an assistantship. It wasn't much.
But you a debt. You weren't in debt for it.
I
Yeah.
wasn't going into debt actively, other than a little credit card debt here and there. But I took out loans my my final year in graduate school. I took out loans because I don't even remember. Because someone told me, oh, you can take out graduate school loans, and I was like, oh, cool. I'll do that. I have a little extra money, and yeah, I still have those loans. So, I mean, I was making good progress on them, and then I got laid off in the pandemic and stuff. I'm chipping away at him again. So, but anyway, yeah, that with a decision within a decision. But I had a lot of fun in graduate school. If you want to delay real life, graduate school, particularly a PhD program, is incredible. It's just it's this prolonged adolescence, prolonged, it's a great way to spend your 20s if you're not worried about making money long term. um, so yeah, that's probably absolutely. I guess the one other thing I was going to say in my about me, um, I love my wife, I love my dog, and I love my truck in that order. So I have my truck is now 30 years old. It's a 96 F-150. For any truck people in the audience, I'm not sure that a lot of economics listeners are into trucks, but it's a short bed, 1996 short bed F-150 with a regular cab, stick shift. It has the old crank windows. It's at four-wheel drive, and only about 120,000 miles on it. So it's my baby. I'm keeping it as long as I possibly can. Uh, so anyway, sorry. That was one last bit.
Well,
Okay.
I've seen it. Heck of a good looking too. So I've seen it in person. And I
Yeah.
try and understand why, the average age that people are holding on to cars now is actually something it's ticked up to almost 14 years. And I keep
Oh,
wondering
wow.
where the people at 14 years, but you're skewing the average, Joe. With your
Yes.
30 years. So there you
I
go.
also,
Yeah.
I like to say I try to have cars that are old enough to drink.
I like that. I like
I
that.
also have a 2003 Buick LeSabre.
Right.
So you're not going to get a lot of good financial advice from this side of the podcast from me. But if you can find a Buick LeSabre from about 95 to 2005, they put this motor in it that is just unstoppable. It's the 3.8 liter V6. They call them road roaches because they just won't die. Anyway, so
Same with the Toyota Camry from that era. Yeah, there's
oh
a
yeah,
couple of cars from that era that are pretty durable.
I think this is actually not to, I mean, so Tangent City,
I know,
but
I know. We're car
I
talk.
think they're part of why people are keeping cars so long is because they're making them to last a lot longer. When we were kids, a lot of cars were made to kind of last, like, if you got 100,000 miles out of it, that was
Yes,
probably a good
good.
deal.
Mhm.
And now, like, there's I saw an F-150 on Facebook Marketplace has my number. Uh, they show me beautiful old trucks, and I saw one that had 350,000 miles on the original motor. So, yeah, incredible. Anyway, so we should probably move into the meat of the show. We've spent a little over 20 minutes on intro stuff. Anyway, but it's just so nice to talk to you. We actually didn't hang out much in high school, and I regret that because you're this very interesting person. So, um, anyway, so my question for you is, and I only found out about this term because you mentioned it to me, and it was completely foreign to me. What is it's either the K-shaped recovery or the K-shaped economy. Is this? Yeah, I mean, I just I'm trying to
Yes,
think of a
I
way
love
to.
it. It's let me,
I'm unfamiliar with the term. Is it like the shape of like the products? Do they all start with the letter K? Are we gonna veer into a problematic direction? And is it gonna be three Ks? I don't know.
oh
Um,
boy, no, we're not.
okay, good. Okay, that's a
Yeah,
relief.
well, I was thinking more like Sesame Street K, but, hey,
Ah,
whatever.
okay.
Anyway,
Or is
yeah,
it
it's
K Street? I've heard of K Street. I don't know what it is, but I
yeah,
know it's a
Washington,
buzz term.
D.C.,
Sorry,
yeah, lobbying, but, we'll stay away
I'll
from
stop goofing around now.
him. But yeah, okay, look, so, I believe I was the person who brought back the term K-shape economy last summer in 2025.
Okay.
And here's the basics, and people usually get it right away. And that's you think of the two parts of the K, one part's going up, one part's going down. And it's the notion that, and in this case, the top 20% of America is doing really well. I mean, they are literally
Yeah.
accelerating. They're, thanks to the booming stock market and the housing prices shooting up, their wealth is increasing and their spending is increasing. Where I really made the case for the K-shaped economy returning last year was we can see it in the spending data. Those top 20% earners are just living la vida loca. They're still traveling to Europe. They're throwing the big
Oh,
weddings and birthday parties. They're going out to fine dining. They are propelling the economy. And then there's everybody else, the bottom 80%. And obviously in a K, it's declining. I would describe it more as people are kind of flatlining, maybe it's not really a K, but you kind of get the
yeah.
haves and the have-nots.
What's
Um,
the
and
I'm sorry. So I'm imagining the graph, and it's a K shape. I worked with a lot of graphs, and I still do sometimes. What's the vertical part? Is that like an event in time?
Yeah, that's a good question. So a lot of people, when I start describing this, they'll say, "Well,
We
hasn't
get
it
too
always
literal.
had no, yeah, or hasn't it always been a K-shaped economy?" You know, and
Yeah.
in some cases, they're yes, they're right. This is long. You know, we can go back to the Gilded Age. You know, we've long had people at the top doing well, and then everybody else. But I think what's different now, we go back to your life story. There was a lot of people who were out of work. You know, 2019,
Mhm.
obviously 2020 or 2021, and then all of those stimulus payments come in and the unemployment, and you know there was a lot of aid during that period, and so you can see it in the data that people's bank accounts and their spending, then there's the revenge spending era across the income spectrum. People are spending, you know, and people are doing pretty.
Revenge spending?
Yeah, it's called revenge spending, you know, because then we were all cloistered for a while during the COVID period, and then
Oh,
people wanna go out and do things, so they were paying to go to those Beyoncé and Taylor Swift concerts and who knows
gotcha.
else. They were paying to go to all these events and experiences because and trips, you know, everybody was going on vacation somewhere. Um, and then so what the where I'm this is a long-winded way of saying your K, you know, your thing, is it really hits around 2024 and then 2025. And why does it
Okay.
hit then? It hits then because, the AI boom starts to happen, and that really juices the stock market again, and
Mhm.
that's helping the top 20%. And then it hits because the rest of America has run down their pandemic savings. You know,
Right.
that that was built up during that period when they weren't spending. I would say it like this, the new dividing line in America feels like we have a lot of dividing lines, but the new one economically is around $170,000. And
Okay.
that's the demarker between people who are in the top 20% and the bottom 80. And I get, yeah, you know, 170,000 doesn't go as far in San Francisco and New York, and or if you have a family of 8,
Well,
you
yeah.
know, like obviously you have to adjust a little bit, but basically that's it, that's around the dividing line, and you can see it everywhere. If you look at car buying, you think, you know, we're just talking about cars. Who the heck's still buying these cars that now cost 50,000 or more a year? New. It's increasingly being driven by people, driven literally by people who are
Mm.
earning at that threshold or above.
Right.
And so, so anyway, that's where you start to see it. That's it's really in the consumption data, sort of how people are living their lifestyle. And you mentioned the word K-shaped recovery. People may have heard that term. That term was used in 2020 during the pandemic when we were
Okay.
in the recession, when all those people were out of work. And in that case, in summer of 2020, it was called the K-shaped recovery because all the white collar jobs were getting back to work and still getting their paycheck. Meanwhile, a lot of folks who were in like service industry, restaurant sector, entertainment sector, they were laid off. And so that was the just such a divergence, you know, similar divergence
Mhm.
of people doing fine and people who were already more moderate income suffering. So it's a little bit of a different concept now, but I think people kind of get it. And it's funny, economists are like, "Hey, what?" But whereas I feel like whenever I explain this on TV or something, regular people are like, "Oh, I get this. You
Well,
know, this makes a lot of sense to me."
I think the thing that is puzzling me. So you mentioned there was a lot of sort of extra spending in the form of aid. I mean, we know about well, I'll say my I won't say direct, but I saw these effects firsthand when I was working at that charity. Uh, something of a large number of our people were on various types of public assistance, obviously, because we're a charity. We ran a food pantry. You know, go to a food pantry if you've got spare cash. But I saw the expanded unemployment benefits. I understand when those dropped away. I understand like a reduction in spending power for people that are in that income bracket. Um, but so they got all this money though, or not all the. I don't want to sound uh, cruel or like I don't like I think they're the apocryphal welfare queen, so to speak. I'm not saying that, but there was this extra money flooding into the bottom to 80%, or specifically, or more specifically targeted probably towards the bottom 50 or whatever percent. They had all this money coming in. Where did it all go? Like did
Yeah, we
Why
have
did it all filter up to the top 20%?
Yeah, I'd say like 2 or 3 key explanations to what you're saying. And we can see it in our data, including here at Navy Federal. You know, we obviously see where people spend and where they move their money. So, a surprising lot of people use it to pay down debt. You know, there was amazing
Mm,
payoffs of the credit card debt or the loans that
mhm,
people were carrying that you're describing some of the even what you had. So that was, you know, people did use it for smart things. Then, of course, we all remember 2022 and the inflation spike, so a lot of basic
yes.
costs have really gone up, and so in our data at Navy Federal, we can see, the as you're describing, let's say the bottom third, you know, people who are, kind of in that 50,000 or below who are have always struggled, but, right now in our data, in inflation-adjusted terms, they're actually spending less now than they did in 2019, and part
Oh,
of that
wow.
is their income is down and the costs are up. And then the middle tier, you know, the middle tier that we focus on so much, I call it the Costco economy. Now Costco's great. You and I were just joking. We love shopping there in a lot of ways, but people are stretching every dollar. You know, they people
Mhm,
they sometimes get asked, "I don't see any sign of the tariff impacts." I'm like, "Well, let me tell you, underneath the hood, people are still spending, but they have shifted their spending. Instead of going to Target, I hate to say it, they're going to the Walmarts and the Costcos of the world. Aldi has become very popular. These
mhm,
types of very light, all these cheaper grocery stores, and even $100,000 a year earners are going to these stores
mhm.
and are even $150,000 earners. And so that's where you can see these shifting patterns of the middle class as they're having to adjust to, you know, to higher costs. So I think
Interesting.
those are the 2. And then, okay, look, yes, there was some, you know, spending on, um, you know, what you might term a luxury, not luxury, but like a frivolity, right? There was
Yeah.
the one
I
that
was gonna say frivolous, yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
you know, there was look, people pimped out their backyards, right? They built these nice decks and they built these nicer, you know, people would buy bounce house for their kids. People wanted to do
Mm,
something to celebrate life after the COVID period. But
mhm,
you know, generally speaking, you're right. There were some politicians who were trying to say, "Oh, people spend all this money on drugs and alcohol." There really is not evidence of that in the
okay.
data. You know, yeah, if you're saying people bought a lot of backyard grills and, you know, a lot of what was the other funny one? Waffle irons were like a lot of kitchen items were really popular.
Really? Well, I
Sure.
guess if you're stuck inside,
Yeah.
yeah,
I
I could
mean,
see
there's
it,
some
yeah.
evidence of that. There is some evidence that people, but I would call it more like, you know, a small splurge than, "Oh, I blew all
It's
my money
more
on
anecdotal
tickets." Yeah.
in that case, right? Like, it's yeah, we know cases of this, but, yeah, the plural of anecdote is not data. Um, yeah. Um,
Even for
so
journalists. Yeah.
so, okay, so but I guess so I'm trying to think through. So you said it's that people paid down debts and but where a lot of the money went to those people was it was subsumed by inflation, paying off debts, and in some cases frivolities.
Yeah,
Okay.
little
Yeah.
splurge. Many
That's
splurges.
interesting. Okay. I
Um
mean, I
And now
guess
they don't have it, you know, now you're
right.
back to a world where the incomes are more constrained, the support payments are been reined in, or back down, and so, so yeah, you're in a world where, um, you know, wages are, you know, not stagnant, but they're kinda slowing the growth and
Yeah.
the costs, and the one that I keep emphasizing to people is people will say, "Well, but inflation, you know, it's not too bad, you know, and the numbers that you see in the press are 2.8%." Okay. But I think what's the reason affordability still remains challenging is A, what we've been through the past 5 or 6 years, and B, um, I call it the big 5 of affordability. If you look at housing costs, whether rent or mortgage, you look at, health
1,
costs, grocery
2,
costs.
3.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Uh
I'm trying to keep track of them.
Housing, healthcare, groceries, food, um, let's see, electricity, you gotta pay to keep your
Utilities in general, yeah. Yep.
utilities, but especially electricity, and then, childcare, and you can put
Childcare.
car or childcare down at the
Okay.
bottom, you know, depending upon where you are in your life. 4 of those 5 have grown faster, much faster than
Which
wages.
one didn't grow faster?
Well, people laugh at this. The official data shows that healthcare costs have actually not been skyrocketing. But anybody who
Really?
has had any sort of major health issue just looks at you like that data can't be right. So
Huh.
so, let's put that with an asterisk, but, um, think about electricity, a lot of and
Oh,
both anecdotally and in the data, you can see the big jump in the past year in addition to the past several years, and so you can't, we were joking earlier, right? You can eat a little more ramen noodle,
mhm.
you can decide to not get your hair cut as much, or I don't know, maybe Joe, you're already doing
Not an
that.
issue for me, but yeah.
But yeah, you gotta pay your electric bill, you gotta pay your housing, you gotta pay your childcare, your car payment, and so
Yeah.
these are things that really can't be skimped on, and
Yeah.
that's where I think in the actual overall inflation number, not that it's misleading, but I think it's not capturing the reality that many middle income and moderate income families are facing in this world.
Hmm. It's interesting because I know I've seen, I'm not much for, I don't know, like I said, mostly when I look at Facebook, I'm looking at the marketplace because I like looking at old trucks and old cars and things like that. So I don't really do a lot of watching social media. But I remember seeing things where people would say, well, if you take out these things from prices, inflation is not going up. But they would name, yeah, like the
Yeah,
things
yeah,
you just
yeah,
listed. It's like,
yeah,
well, if you don't worry about housing and groceries and electricity,
it's fine.
inflation isn't so bad. And it's like, well, but I do worry about those things because I got to eat and have a place to sleep. And yeah, yeah, okay. So, okay. So if we're looking at something like the K-shaped economy, um, and I think I'm now okay. So I'm thinking about the graph again. We have a divergence basically, right? We have the bottom four quintile, or sorry, stats brain, the bottom
Yes,
80%, the top
yeah.
20%, right? So the top 20% is sort of uh it's going up, and is so would you say it's going up at an accelerated rate? Are we getting into a fancy script of the K, or is it a block, you know?
That's a good question. It depends what data you're
Oh,
looking
okay.
at. So, I've obviously argued that you can really see it in a pronounced way in the consumption data. You
Right.
can see it to a certain extent in the confidence, like how people rate the economy. Is this a good economy or
The
not?
vibes economy. I've heard of
Yes,
that.
vibes
Okay.
economy, you can see it pretty pronounced there. So, I think I don't know if I don't know if I'd say it's accelerating.
So
Um,
we're on a linear function still for any
probably
math nerds in the
thing that
audience.
looks pretty linear. Like, I can tell you in our internal data, it's like spending growth every month, it just keep ticking up 6 to 7% for that top 20%, it's
Interesting.
boom, 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 there's just no slowing it down, not much variation, whereas I feel when you look at it for the middle or the lower tier segments, you see a lot more variation. I mean, you can almost tell, like, the shutdown happens, the government shutdown in October, and you can see a little
Yeah.
bit pullback in spending as people are nervous, about what's gonna happen, and some people aren't getting paid. You can see more of these gyrations, or like April, right? April of 2025 when the president announces all those tariffs on Liberation Day,
Yeah.
like, shocks the world. You can see a lot more middle class, lower income people pulling back right away and very,
Yeah.
you know, nervous, but
Yeah. So excuse me. So I'm imagining the curve. It's or the graph. It's that we have this demarcation of 2024 ish, right?
Mhm.
And if we were to name an event or a catalyzing sort of I guess event or phenomenon at that period, or at that time in 2020. I don't know. I'm just trying to figure out, like,
Yeah,
is it,
I would call it
obviously the
savings
elephant in the
run
room is an election that happened at
yeah,
that
yeah,
time,
it's
but
savings runs dry, savings runs
oh, okay.
for
So it
certainly
wasn't like a one thing. It was a bunch of things, or I should say, it wasn't tied to a specific date. It was the culmination of a thing that gradually happened, and it happened to. Okay, I got you. Sorry.
coincide with 2024, and, And most regular people, when you ask them, would blame it on the higher prices and the inflation, but it's also that, their, their income side, their budget side, was
Yeah.
gone, and there's just no cushion, and so when you're back in a world where you're facing, all of these different, it's almost like I call it whack-a-mole inflation. It's
Mm.
not just that prices are going up, it's, "Oh my gosh, I thought I finally got the electric bill under control, and now, whoa, my car breaks down and the car costs are up," or, "Oh, I went to the grocery store and bought my normal things and suddenly they're $20 more," so it's this, like, I can't manage. We have many people who are in our take our calls when Navy Federal members call in, and somebody said to me the other day when I was talking to her, I was like, "And what are you seeing?" She's like, "So many people are just emotionally exhausted by their finances right now." And it's, again, it's
Yeah.
not that it's not that they went from being rich to being poor. It's just they feel that I finally get one thing under control and then this other thing pops up and I just, am getting hit and hit and hit.
Yeah. Well, it's I'm sympathetic to that. I mean, as a local government bureaucrat, only a few years into the field, I still have a Roman numeral one after my title. So I'm not raking in the dough. We're fine. I'm not saying, but it is it it's I'm definitely in that bottom 80%, and it does feel like even when something uh So one of the benefits of working, by the way, you should, if you're looking for a career change and you're looking at options for employment, you should look at your local government. They need good people. You're never going to get rich, but you're also probably not going to be poor. There's a lot of opportunities, and just putting a shout out for my colleagues in the recruitment division of human resources. But anyway, the so in my area, like I said, I do compensation. And so one of the things that we process are cost of living adjustments. And so you see this bump that shows up, uh, if things go well, if we set up our spreadsheets correctly, you should see that increase at fiscal year and mid fiscal year, uh, sometimes one, sometimes the other, sometimes both. But you see these bumps, and it's like, oh man, that's great. And then you go to pay a bill or the store, and you're like, well, what was the point? It's like, uh, yeah,
This is the one I struggle with the most. There was an economist from one of the big consulting firms who recently
mhm,
put out a note that said basically was trying to debunking the K-shaped economy. And obviously somebody sent it to me
uh,
as
of
as
course,
people
that's your
who's
baby,
vocal. And this was his big argument was, hey, if I look at people focus too much on the price increases and not on the fact that they're also getting wage increases. And if you look over the past 5 or 6 years, the wages have, on average, grown faster than the price increases. But this is where you have to go back to that joke, that sort of mindset you were speaking about when you look at the inflation data. It's supposed to be the average basket of how much people all across America spend on all these different items, but most middle income and moderate income people are spending the bulk of their money on the basics. And they're
right,
not, you know, and they're not buying the audio equipment every month. They're not, buying
right,
a sofa every month or a new
right,
dishwasher. And so that's where I think if you isolate those costs, the basic costs, you see a much more strained. You do see a lot of those costs rising faster than the 2 or 3% pay growth that people are getting
right,
in most jobs on average in America or in recent years.
yeah. It's yeah. I don't know. Like, I think you really hit on something with the psychological, like the fatigue aspect. And I think there's an extent to which when you are kind of in that middle, low to middle, without a ton of prospects to bump up, unless, yeah, just the perfect position comes up that you can apply to and get into, and you happen to be chosen for it. Unless something like that, you kind of view your life as like you're in that middle to middle low, and there's a why try, or like, it's, I I don't want to run on this treadmill anymore. Like, okay, fine, I'll slide off the treadmill. And I think there's a lot to that, that I see, at least, is people just kind of saying, you know what, like, just fine, run away with it, top 20%. Just, yeah, whatever. Uh, anyway, yeah, I don't
I
want to
think
get
you're
too much
right.
into that.
Yeah, I think you're right. I guess I'll just, riff off that a little bit that,
Please do
yeah, I
riff
think
away.
yeah, you
I'm a
see it
guitar player. I love riffs.
you see it in a number of areas. Gen Z is notoriously some members of the Gen Z are, they don't believe in savings. What's the point? I'm never going to be able to buy a house, or I'm never going to be able to retire. So I might as well
Hmm.
just spend whatever little extra money I have on, traveling the world or doing these sorts of things. Living for the moment. You
Or
also,
even just going out for a meal.
yeah,
You
yeah.
say, well, if you cooked at home, you could say, and they say, yeah, but I cook all that stuff at home, and the money's gone anyway. So
Yeah,
sorry. Go ahead.
right, or what's it for, like you say. You certainly see some alarming, polling data on when people are asked, do they still believe in capitalism in the United States? It's pretty shocking. I've even had some
Hmm.
pretty high profile CEOs ask me, "What do you think's going on here?" And then the first thing I turn around and ask them and say, "Well, what was your wage increase for your average worker last year?"
Yeah.
But they don't like that question, but, and then, the other one I think you see it, and we're starting to see it in our data, is this, like, huge rise in the gambling economy. Um,
Yeah.
and so people, like, you name it, whether the sports betting, the betting on, all this political stuff you can bet on. I mean,
Yeah.
and it's part of this same trend, like you're saying, instead of taking the trip, some people are getting the rush from doing the gambling and sort of feeling like the only people who get rich are people who do crazy stuff and are,
Well, yeah.
I don't know,
Or crypto.
yeah, so some of this is involved part of what's going on as well, and, so yeah, I don't know, I think one of the more interesting questions I've been asked about this K-shaped economy is, like, should we be worried about it? What's the problems of a K-shaped economy?
Is it good? What's it good for?
Yeah.
I think that's actually a question for you, the expert. Is the K-shaped economy, maybe this is the way it should be? It's not just the way it is. Maybe this is, I mean, not like should with like a sort of religious sense, but like maybe this is just, this is my life now, that kind of thing. And do you think that is it a good thing?
I do not. I
Okay.
think it's very risky in both an economic and a political context. In an economic context, you're getting so reliant on a small number of people to prop up the economy.
Hmm.
If Jeff Bezos is having a good day, then the economy doesn't go into a recession. I mean, that's really
Yeah.
where we want to be. That's not how we think of ourselves as a nation. And to put a little bit of an asterisk or exclamation point on that, when people say, well, it's always been like this. Yeah, to a certain extent, American society has always been divided, but it's never been this divided. And a lot of
Right.
people have been citing some good data from Moody's that shows, okay, back in, the 1990s when we were about to hit middle school, high school, the top sort of 20% or so controlled, it depends where you look, but let's say 35 to 40% of all spending consumption. So they were a big player, people were
Hmm.
catering to the top. But now those same people control over 60% of spending. They
Wow.
control just, everything. And that's why you're seeing so many brands, even Walmart, Walmart of all places, trying to cater to wealthier and wealthier consumers. It's a race
Interesting.
to cater to these people. It's a race to design products for them. It's almost like everybody else is invisible. And so that, not only, and now, and you can see in the polls how frustrated people are with the economy, even when the stock market's at a record high and the growth
Yeah.
numbers look great. And why are people so frustrated? Well, because they can see that they might not be, out on being homeless, but
Right.
they can see that they are not benefiting nearly
Right.
to the extent.
Somebody's getting rich and it ain't me.
Yeah, there you go. See?
Yeah. Yeah, I want, and this is bringing back memories. So the summer before our junior year of high school, when you were going into the economics class that launched you in your trajectory, and I was going I was originally going to take that class, and we had because we were that kind of high school, we had for our most advanced classes, we had summer work
Oh,
that we had to
yes,
do for these
yes.
classes. We had to prior to ninth grade, it was David Copperfield,
Oh my gosh, yeah, I remember reading that.
and
Yeah, Travels
you know,
with Charlie. Yes, Steinbeck
and
too.
Travels with Charlie, which was a much better book
Yeah,
in a
I
lot of
agree.
ways. But anyway, um, uh, but anyway, so in that summer, I remember before I dropped out of taking the advanced economics class, my uncle, who at the time he's now retired, but he was a financial advisor, and
Wow.
so I didn't know what to do my summer topic on. I was like, is there a topic? I was talking with him at a family gathering or something like that, and I was like, what topic would you say? And he said, oh, the thin market. And this was even in 1999, which the dot-com boom, right? We were still I, 99 was still summer. What no, summer of 98 was still pretty
Oh, yeah.
solid dot-com boom, right?
Oh,
It didn't start
yeah.
crashing until
Yep. Mhm.
oh 2001 was kind of when that
Yep,
started anyway.
yep.
But he was like, yeah, it's a thin market, it's being led, it looks like it's going gangbusters, but there's just a few big stocks that are driving almost all of this. And at the time I was like, oh, okay, I think I'll take music theory. So anyway, but yeah, that really resonates with me now. I mean, if it's, I mean, that's the stock market, and you're talking more about like people and who has the money,
No,
who's
but it's
spending
the
the money, but it's
same,
the same
yeah.
thing, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I did do a piece as well in the fall that the K-shaped economy obviously, I've been explaining it, like you say, through the people, the consumer side of the economy, but it exists similarly right now in the business
Hmm.
side, the corporate world too. And, you can really see it, the Mag 7, those 7 stocks, very similar, to
Hang on
that.
a second. To me, the Mag 7 is a dish at Perkins Restaurant. So can you rattle off at least a couple of the Mag 7? Because
Yeah, oh, yeah,
this is
so
completely new to me.
NVIDIA, Google, Facebook,
Right.
and Microsoft, Amazon.
Okay. Amazon,
Um,
right.
and then, oh my gosh, I'm embarrassing myself by
Any
not
of the
remem
Musk companies? Any of the
yeah, that's probably in there, Tesla and, yeah,
SpaceX and well, I guess SpaceX is a
no,
yeah, never
SpaceX
mind.
isn't listed,
Oh, right. That's oh man. Yeah.
eh,
Anyway, yeah. So that's the okay. We're talking about those and what's wild to me as a driver of a 30-year-old Ford pickup truck, Ford isn't in that list, is it?
oh, no, no, or
Yeah.
even the oil, oil companies in the '90s and early
Right.
2000 were the most ExxonMobil was the most valuable company in the world, and it's all just been totally blown away by these other or banks,
Where'd it
banks,
go?
uh they're still there, but, again, it's they're in the middle now. "Welcome to the middle
But
tier, friends. Welcome."
well, and this is like real moron hours, right? Like I, I hear about stuff like Exxon used to be the biggest and now it's in the middle. Where'd their money go? They had all that money. Where'd it go?
Well, it's not that for them, and it's not so much that they spent it, it's that tech became more valuable. It's
Oh,
in
okay.
that case, it is the parabolic part of the K, that they have just
Yeah.
those tech companies have grown so exponentially compared to everybody else.
Well,
Um,
and but what are they? I don't know. I don't want to get too deep into the moron weeds here. I guess so. Like I look at stuff that Exxon or Ford or manufacturing and energy stuff like that. I look at what they do, and they're doing a thing. They're making a thing. Like there's a product that's real that like I can either put it in the car or it is the car, that kind of thing. And I know like Nvidia, they make what like graphics processors or whatever. Like
chips, microchips, yeah.
yeah,
Um
microchips. Yeah. So is it here's a question. Did Exxon buy too many gaming computers? And that's why no, I know that they didn't. But
Well, Exxon's
that's the
problem is that the price of oil's come down. So,
oh,
one of the few areas of the cost that is not, um, so onerous right now is filling up
yeah.
the car right now. It's an average is just under $3 or around $3 a gallon, which, isn't too bad by recent historical standards.
Or
Um,
even I always remember because I was in graduate school and very broke at the time. Interesting thing with grad school, by the way, for those who might be considering PhD programs, you're not poor exactly. You're just broke, and there's a difference.
yeah, I see
And
what
Heather could probably explain that difference to you better than I could. But and I was dead broke at the time. very paycheck to paycheck lifestyle. And I remember I had a little Honda that was quite efficient and everything. I remember going to a gas station in 2007
It was
or
8,
2008,
yeah, summer of
summer
2008,
2008,
energy.
and it was like $4 a gallon.
Mhm.
And what's wild is that now that would be well, okay, and we're speaking in East Coast terms. Our friends in California are
Yeah,
cursing our hearts and
correct.
swearing oaths of vengeance upon us. But if I saw $4 a gallon now, I would say, wow, that's high. But
Yeah, you wouldn't
we're
fill up
so
there unless you were desperate. Yep.
yes, yeah, exactly. But anyway, so uh, oh, I should be taking notes as we talk because I think of these things and then moron brain here, it just kind of just evaporates. But anyway, um, so the K-shaped economy is probably not good, as you said. How do we fix it? Is there a fix for the K-shaped economy, or K-shaped, not recovery? We're talking economy. Okay, sorry.
Alright, well, now we're getting more into the politics side, but I would say,
Oh, risky.
yeah, yeah, one of the more obvious things, just based upon what we've been talking about, would be to, tax more of the wealthy part of America that has been thriving. We have historical precedent for that. It was, in the 1980s, the top tax rate drops hugely.
Yeah,
And we obviously had most people would argue a pretty strong economy and after World War
or
II.
the 50s.
Yeah, the
Talk about the
50s,
1950s. What was
60s,
the top
70s,
marginal tax rate?
right. It's
Wasn't
like
it?
70%. I mean,
I was going to say it might have even been, yeah, well, you would know better than I would, but I remember looking at it and saying, under Dwight Eisenhower, that was the top marginal tax rate. He
yes.
was, he had an R after his name, in addition to all the stars from being a
Exactly,
general. But
exactly.
yeah.
So, I think, again, you always have to calibrate these things and
So what do
there's
we do with that taxed money? Am I asking too big of questions? I'm sorry.
Well, look, I know
Because,
here's how I would say it. Whenever people are like, "Oh my gosh, we have so many problems we can't fix," look, we live next to a lot of countries, well, not next door, but obviously Canada, Japan, many other
mhm,
places that are not Sweden. I know everybody likes to talk about Sweden, but Sweden's probably a little too far on the left for us. But, even the Japans of the world have figured out that you have to subsidize childcare in order to make it
mm,
work, and that you have to do some sort of subsidization of healthcare more than we currently do. And, that can look in a lot of different ways. It doesn't have to be Medicare for all. I think you can have
yeah.
debates about this sort of stuff, but at the moment, these are, huge, huge cost pressures and it,
An interesting side of this for
that-
me is, I definitely see there are parallel, I don't know about there are distinct sectors of people when it comes to how they interact with healthcare in the sort of the mishmash system that we have. People under a certain income just don't worry about it. They have Medicaid, uh, which again, I grew somewhat familiar with helping people apply and renew back when I worked at the charity. And then you have people uh, above that sort of Medicare or Medicaid threshold. You have people in that area that they get it through work, and maybe they have high premiums and high deductible, high copay stuff like that. They get it through work, uh, but a lot of the people in that. So if we look at public sector, obviously, I mean, it's I'm a privileged government bureaucrat. My premiums and copays and stuff are incredibly reasonable. Uh, and I think sometimes maybe that's a blind spot, that there are those of us that really don't worry about that stuff. It's kind of, yeah, I got to pay something for it, but it's not going to, bankrupt me and that sort of thing. But then you have within, maybe not even that lowest income band, above it, you do have people that make pretty good money, but if they get sick, it's going to be disastrous for them. And then of course the people at the top end, they don't worry about it. They've got the money. Um, and I think that the difficulty, politically speaking, is what I've described are groups with differing situations and therefore differing perceptions of the problem. So that okay, so full disclosure, bearing my heart to the world, and this is not a secret to people that knew me, or that know me and remember me from, several years ago. I was a big Bernie Sanders guy, and I thought this guy is a slam dunk. He's like Larry David, but in politics. He's smart. He's funny. And his policies, though, his policies were like this Medicare for all thing. And to me, that was just like, why doesn't everybody want this? And it finally dawned on me when I was working at the charity work, that a lot of these people, like I said, to them, it was just like, I don't worry about healthcare. I mean, I got to apply for Medicaid, or renew it or whatever. But uh, so that's a major portion of the population that's just, he's not speaking to a thing that they need. They don't. It's not relevant for them. It's like, I already get that. And and so how do you build a coalition around something like that? Same thing. Uh, uh, Childcare is, you have different sort of subsectors of population, and I don't know, where do you build that coalition from? I guess is I don't know. Yeah.
Yep, now
Oh,
you're explaining why we haven't solved a lot of these problems for sure.
okay. That's why we have the K-shaped economy, and we would need to fix it by,
But I
I
think
don't
what you're
know.
seeing is the growing frustration and, whatever your views on politics, I think we can all agree that we've seen it play out at the ballot box and certainly in the last
Yeah.
12 years, and, we're gonna continue to see it in an environment like this, and in an environment where another thing that's really changed, is you look at across America, and it used to be that the coast, particularly the New Yorks and San Franciscos, the major metro areas, those were the unaffordable places. Those are the
Yeah.
places that you knew you're gonna have to pay crazy amounts for your apartment
Right.
if you weren't stupid and getting the one bedroom. But um, now after what the we've seen, a 55% surge in housing costs on average across the United States in the last, five years or so. And so now even places like our hometown area, have
Hmm.
seen these dramatic increases, and it's still more affordable than New York City, but
Well,
basically
yeah.
there's nowhere left to flee that you can have. There's very few places. Like, you used to move to Phoenix or Vegas or, Boise, Idaho or Atlanta or, the Carolinas to try to get
Hmm.
away, parts of Texas to try to get away from those coastal problems. And now many of those areas are also, no, they're still cheaper, but they're not a lot cheaper.
Relative terms,
Yeah,
though. Yeah.
not a lot cheaper, and that's where I think a lot of these problems are so much more in the face of a lot of everyday Americans who used to think,
Yeah.
"Eh,
That's a New York problem.
yeah." Or at least
Yeah.
you were saying, "At least my mortgage payment's only $600 a month." Well, there's not many
Yes.
people in that situation, at least who are getting new mortgages, so
Certainly not. Yeah. And this is maybe going too far afield. There's clearly demand for low cost housing, right? I mean, like nobody wants to pay. Well, I shouldn't say nobody. Sometimes you do. You want to sink your money into real estate. Sometimes, I imagine, if you have a bunch of money, maybe, I don't know. It's unfamiliar situation to me, but there's clearly demand for lower cost housing. Why don't we have it? Uh,
well, I'll give you
is this a whole other episode? Should I
probably,
put
but
a
I'll give you
pin in
the
this one?
teaser. I'll give you the teaser trailer, and, I actually wrote a piece at the end of my Washington Post days that it was very
Oh, cool.
controversial. The American dream should be a townhome. It was meant to get a little bit of a rift with
Ooh,
people, but I spent a lot of time thinking about this very question.
well, that's a spicy one, Heather.
Yeah, I know.
The
That's
American dream should be a townhome.
I
Okay,
know.
sorry. Go ahead.
Fox had a field day with that, but,
Oh my gosh.
Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, basically, we ruined the condo market because of liabilities. So no developer will build new condos, or very rarely, because
Okay.
they can be sued for years to come. Think about that horrible situation. I mean, tragic situation in Florida where the building collapsed.
Oh gosh. Yeah.
Obviously, nobody wants that, but there's so
Yeah.
many restrictions now that no bank will finance and almost no
Oh.
developers wanna do condos. So those, they're like, "Why can't we do like Hong Kong or, pick your favorite European city?" It's never gonna happen. So that's why I was turning to the townhome, or Houston has the small lot homes where
Yeah.
sort of return of the 1,400 square foot or 1,200 square foot home, right? And they can be packed in a little bit closer to each other, to save on costs. Well, why don't more places do that? Very simple. Zoning codes are terrible. in
Oh.
many parts of America. I was calling up all these developers across America, and they're like, "Let me just read to you the emails that I have received." I'm sorry to say from my local government, and,
Hmm.
that
Hey,
wanted to do this. We needed to have just this slight, seemingly common sense tweak, and it was like, "Absolutely not. Can you have that?"
yeah.
And so they would say, "Fine, then we're just gonna go build the homes we can make money off of," which is, the $600,000 starter home, which is not a starter home.
Oh.
So the zoning
So
code, and then, you layer on top of that, the cost of materials has risen a lot like everything else in the last few
oh, yeah.
uh,
Oh, so, like, fixed costs, right?
yeah, but it's
Like
really the zoning one that a lot of people don't
okay.
want the headache. So
Right. Well,
they
yeah, in order to build a low cost unit, you have to
you have to have a
higher density,
well,
lower cost.
yep, and you have
You still have a lot of the basic expenses of dealing with permits and zoning and stuff like that. And then if you're going to do all that work anyway, just build something that costs a whole bunch because
you'll
that
make
reduces your cost or
then
your
you only have
it
to
increases your
sell.
profit per unit, right?
Yep, and then you
Yeah.
only have to sell to one family versus,
Oh,
thinking about you have to sell the 30 townhomes on the block or whatever,
right.
or the 30,
Huh.
whatever, the Houston style close together homes. So there's just so many small barriers along the way that you kind of
Yeah.
understand why developers are doing what, even though they know there's demand. I mean, they're sitting
Right. Yeah.
and telling you, "Yeah, my kid can't find a house either. My son or daughter just graduated from college, and they would love to buy something like this, and there's just none in my area." And you're like, "You're a
Yeah.
developer, just build it."
Right.
Uh,
Yeah, man, I'm grateful every day. So we're coming up. I believe tomorrow is our 10-year anniversary of buying our house. Well,
wow.
buying, moving in and taking out the mortgage and stuff. But we got a mortgage when we did, and we got in the market when we did. I'm just incredibly grateful for that because you were talking about Zoomers and young people and stuff. My heart absolutely breaks for these people trying to get into the housing market at this time between interest rates and just the insane prices. Like I just I don't even know what I would do. And I know what I would do. I would go into hopeless mode. With I saw a meme, doomer. I would become a doomer about that. I just like I don't know how. Yeah, I mean it's got to be just soul crushing. Yeah. Anyway, sorry, not to bring it down, not to be too much of a downer on that, but it's boy, yeah.
Yeah, well, so
But
that's how the K-shaped economy ends, is it's just gonna keep being played out at the ballot box. I think.
And you think that based on if these trends continue, um, if these trends continue, do you see it continuing to be the same general shape and like with the lower 80% kind of declines, or is it there's no like we would have to have a major disruption or change in something in order for this to change.
Yep, yep, I think
Oh
so.
man.
I mean, the other scary one is that you could have some sort of stock market correction, possible something that knocks the top 20% down, but that's also highly feasible, but it doesn't mean that everybody in the bottom of the K is gonna feel much better either. That's not really an uplift, right, to them.
Yeah,
The optimistic case, let's play the devil's advocate. The optimistic
sure.
case, and you hear this a lot from the White House, is that we are on the verge of a productivity boom, similar to what we
Oh,
all lived through in our high school days in the 1990s on
yeah.
back, and that this new AI technology is going to, make life easier. And usually, what happens in a productivity boom is not only does the economy grow faster, we are all producing more with doing the same, hours per week, but it usually ends up lifting wages across the wage spectrum. So
Okay.
that's your most optimistic case of how does the $60,000 or $80,000 a year family really feel this finally. And,
Yeah.
is they benefit from higher incomes from the productivity boom. That's a lot of ifs. We gotta make
Yeah.
sure we have it. We gotta make sure this is a world where, the CEOs are actually going to distribute better, and we have to make sure that this is a world where AI is not gonna take away the jobs. So there's a lot of there to make that leap, but we do have the 1990s as an example.
That's true. Although I don't know, I think I don't know. I think like the '90s was sort of I'm trying to remember my history now. It was sort of a new I want to era of good feelings. Do you remember that term from school? The '90s were kind of like that, and politics kind of turned into like I, I like the joke because 2000 was the first election that we were old enough to vote in, and I remember like someone trying to get me interested in that election. And I don't. What's the difference? But and at the time it was kind of like, like you get this guy or you get this guy, and they're talking about a couple of different things. But I think SNL covered it well. Honestly, they did some of the best debate coverage in that. It was strategery or a lockbox. And that was they told them to sum up their campaign in one word, and it's like, yeah. And at the time I was just kind of like, yeah, if that's if that's it, like, okay, maybe I'm not real engaged. But so in that way, it was an era of like politics kind of faded into the background, at least for kind of everyday stuff. But also that economy, it was thin, and when it fell apart, boy, did it ever. The .com thing, like
Yeah, they
I
threw
know
out
that.
for a few years the jobless recovery, and that term's kinda back too when people are talking about the
Yeah.
jobless boom now.
Boy, I'm adding that to our list of
Yeah.
topics.
So,
I have a good list of topics that Heather and I have brainstormed, and I'm adding because I'm going to forget it if I don't. The jobless economy. Okay, or that was the term, right? I haven't already
jobless
forgotten it.
recovery or jobless boom.
Jobless recovery.
So
See, I already forgot it. That's why I write it down.
if things
Um,
are doing pretty well on that GDP and growth side, but why, where's the show me the jobs, show me the jobs.
yeah,
Is not
yeah. It's
jobs.
all right. Well, I feel like I have a slight. I expected not to
You drink
understand the
drink the K
K-shaped economy.
Kool-Aid.
I had not anticipated understanding this, but you've done a very good job. You're making it hard to be a moron in this world. So this is where in my outline I had Joe gives up because I had not expected to actually understand this, but I'm not giving up. I do. I understand at least at some level the K-shaped economy. Um, I think I want to do one more lightning round question. Do you mind?
Yeah, okay, throw it out there.
Okay.
Hopefully I'll
Another lightning round. All right. Let's see. What is the definition, or is there such a thing as an economic as opposed to the plural economics?
that's interesting. Oh.
This is mostly a joke question, just so you know.
Gosh, I don't know.
Yeah, right? I don't know.
Man, I should have paid more attention in Latin and Greek.
Right?
No idea, no idea.
The best I was able to come up with is that one is done in pencil versus the other is in ink. So, yes. Okay. I promise there won't be too many terrible jokes in the show. All right. And for our topic next week, I think we had talked about this idea of uh, uh, time preference. And I tried to do a little bit of reading into this, and I don't understand. I like how is high? They're backwards. High time preference for so I'm already I don't yeah, it's high and it's not good. Is high good? Is high bad? I I'm already just completely befuddled by it. So um anything you want to add at the end here, Heather? Or we've already gone on for longer than I think we'd planned on, but
Yes, I think so. We're not gonna make it to Costco for our Costco economy run.
well, I've missed executive hours. At my Costco, they let us in a half hour early on Saturdays if we're in the executive club.
Wow, look at
So
you. Maybe you're making it to the
yes,
top of the
yeah,
cake,
I don't want to
right?
brag or anything, but I am an executive. Yes, but okay. Well, thank you, Heather. Thank you so much for your time. I know it is precious. I your time. I prefer to use our that's time preference. Anyway, thank you very much. And thank you to listeners. Hopefully I figure out how to get this thing uploaded and published. So
Yeah, see
have
you
a
next
lovely week. Bye-bye.